Well, hello, and thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Catherine Ewell, and this is a training about getting your board on board with fundraising. I'm aiming for this to be about 30 minutes because I really know your time is precious and I want to be effective in this training. It's very high level. I have a more detailed 2-hour workshop available, but this is the 30-minute highlights, and I'm going to try to give you the most important elements of this kind of training to get your board on board with fundraising as effectively as I can. For those of you who already know me, you know that I am an experienced executive director and fundraiser for over 20 years. And my specialty in the last 8 or 9 years has been major gift fundraising, which is to say working on those one-on-one relationships with donors who are able to give larger, more transformational gifts. I've been specializing in that and in coaching a large team to succeed in that arena as well. And so that's my area of specialty, but all of the fundraising strategies are essential to your organization's success. So they're all included in reference in this presentation, where we are going to focus on how to get your board helping you. So thank you for joining me. Let's jump in right away. So you are in the right place today if you care deeply about the impact that your organization delivers. And of course, you are probably feeling a little bit tired of doing it all yourself, whether you are a board member who's volunteering and it's all falling on your shoulders, or you're a founder and you're just grinding it out because this was your vision, or whether you're an executive director and this is something you know you need your board's help with and you're really struggling with how to get them engaged. You're in the right place if you're feeling a bit tired of doing it all yourself. If you have recognized that your board is uncomfortable with fundraising, if they shrink away, hide, put their heads down, and avoid volunteering for anything that smacks of fundraising, then you are in the right place. And of course, if you know that you need fundraising in order to deliver the impact that your organization delivers, and you're just trying to put those pieces together, then you are in the right place today. All right, so here's what we're going to accomplish, attempting to do this in about 30 minutes. I'm going to share with you the 3 things that block most boards from getting engaged with fundraising. I'm going to share my onboard fundraising framework, which I've developed and tested over time with various boards, and aims to save you some time by sharing a bit of that wisdom. I'm going to provide you with an overview of the training that I think you could share with your board to get this change to happen. And I've included a few worksheets which will help you on that way. And then I'm going to lay out some ideas of how to get your board thinking about the long range fundraising strength that your organization can have. So let's jump in right away and get started. So this training was born out of my own struggles with boards who weren't on board with fundraising. You know, if you're like me, you are tired of doing all the things. Everything falls to your plate, and there just aren't enough hours in the day to make it all happen. And you just know you need additional resources, and you're wondering why no one is helping you. And if you're like me, you're worried about sustainability. I can remember an organization, my first organization where I was the executive director, and we hit a wall, a financial crisis, and I felt like the floor was falling out from underneath me. And I thought that this organization that had been around for over 20 years was going to cease to exist if I didn't figure this fundraising thing out. And I did not feel capable of solving this gigantic problem all on my own. But I was absolutely determined that this organization was not going to fail. And these people who were so in need of our services were not going to go without, not on my watch. I was a young executive director and I didn't have a whole lot of skill, but I had a whole lot of determination, maybe a little bit of pride in there as well. But I also felt like certainly for the higher wealth individuals in our community, or those folks who I knew were already philanthropic at a higher level, I didn't personally have those connections. And I knew that some of my board members did. And I just needed to I needed to tap into their connections and figure out how we could help them understand what role they could play in helping our organization along. So that experience of feeling like I've got to figure this out is really the beginnings of how I developed my on-board training program. And I didn't have a lot of skills around or knowledge around this. I had to go and get it. I had to learn. I had to dig. I had to study. I had to interview and ask questions. I had to do trial and error with my own board to develop this program. But the results were so exciting for me, and I want you to have that as well. So that first $1 million gift that I managed to secure hand in hand with one of my board members, there's nothing that feels better than that. I didn't need to take any credit for it. I was happy to give all the credit to the board member, but knowing that together we made that happen, because I was the organizational base, I was the strategy, they were the connector. That was the magic right there. And for you, it doesn't have to be $1 million gift. It could be that first $5,000 gift or that first $10,000 gift. It doesn't matter what the amount is. It matters that you've put the team together and you've opened up the ability of the board to help you with that. And it can be important and relevant in events, in one-to-many fundraising as well. My example here was that first year that I had my whole board on board with what we were trying to achieve with our signature gala event, and we were able to double the revenue. So for many years, it had brought in $70,000, and that year we brought in $140,000, and it continued to go up from there. And the reason was, we were able to fully understand what needed to happen, and we were able to get the right high-end items donated for the silent and live auction at the same time as we were able to get the right high net worth individuals and philanthropic minded individuals in the room as guests. You can't have one without the other and make double your revenue happen. And so everybody was pulling, we were all rowing in the same direction. And that was like a moment, a light bulb went off for me that this training and education of the board really does work. And then to have them collaborating with me on organizational growth. You cannot have your board coming up with some vision of a future for your organization without understanding that any vision for the future has to come hand in hand with how are we going to get there? How are we going to develop the resources that'll make that possible? So you don't want them saying, I think we should buy a property or double in size, serve twice as many people, have a satellite office, without understanding, and how are we going to bring the revenues to make that possible? So they need to be a part of that discussion. And that's another benefit of this training. All right, so if I can do it, so can you, because I was not a board training expert. I was not even a training expert of any kind. Yes, I had a lot of experience, but this was before, this was early on in my days when I started developing this training. I want to share this training with you so that I can save you time and give you the absolute confidence that you can absolutely do this. There's nothing special about what I bring to the table other than a willingness to talk to my board about this subject. So let's get right into it. What do I think blocks most boards? What have I discovered blocks most boards? And you've probably put some thought into this yourself. You probably have some ideas, and I encourage you to jot those down. But what it all boils down to, in my experience, is three things. It's what they think about fundraising, so their mindset. They might think, anything to do with fundraising is salesy or schmarmy or coercive. And we need to shift that. It's what they know about fundraising. Do they even understand all the strategies that it's going to take to come together to make a sustainable organization? Do they know how you build successful fundraising program. And what have they done in the past or experienced in the past? And if they've had a bad experience, either being coerced into a gift or feeling like they had to cold call or coerce someone into giving, then they're left with a feeling that that's how it is and they don't like it. And so we need to shift that as well. So these are the 3 things we're going to address in this training. And I use this, my thought process around this, I put into a framework, which I'd like to share with you now. I'll make that a little bit bigger for you. So you'll see on this framework that we've got a triangle, and we're going to take a 3-pronged approach. First, we're going to shift their mindset. With their mindset, we really want to take them from feeling resistant and uncomfortable to feeling comfortable with the whole idea of fundraising. And then once we've shifted their mindset, we want to look at mastery. And mastery is maybe a bit too big of a word. We just want them to be educated on some level about what we need to do in our organization to build a sustainable fundraising program. So we're going to take them from unsure what is fundraising and what are we trying to do, to feeling confident. They understand the overarching picture of what the organization's putting in place for fundraising. And then we want to give them some momentum, some easy early wins. We want to take them from tentative, they've maybe bought into the fundraising thing now, but they're not sure that they have what it takes. And we're going to give them a couple of quick wins so that they feel more eager and successful and willing to jump in at a bigger level as a fundraising support for you. So that's my framework, and let's just get started. All right. So starting with mindset, what I'm going to do is talk first about an overview of where I start with my boards when I'm doing board training, and then I'll give you 3 exercises, which the worksheets I sent to you as a part of this mini training. So first of all, I like to reframe what they think about fundraising by talking about philanthropy and getting them to think about this fundraising thing from the donor's perspective. So philanthropy is really the desire to promote the welfare of others, and it's often expressed by the donation of money to causes that connect to their heart, their passion, and their values. And so when we ask our board members to think about fundraising from this perspective, that it is something that the donor wishes to do, and that we are not looking to coerce people who don't believe, who don't connect at the heart or passion or values to our organization's mission. We're looking for the people who do already have us in their heart, or the work that we do in their heart. And that's the people that we're trying to talk to. But I go at it with 2 other definitions as well to flesh out this transformation of what they're thinking. Philanthropy is the solemn act of compassion or justice. So when we look at the fact that a donor is trying to express compassion, most people we know are good and they're compassionate, and they want to express that in some way, or they want to bring justice to a situation where they feel there is injustice. And so by allowing them to do this through your organization, to have these impacts through your organization, you are serving them. You are serving the donor's desire to act on their compassion and justice. And then finally, and this one speaks to me the most strongly, this one really impacted me, and that is philanthropy is a conduit for social impact and social change. I work with a lot of donors on a one-to-one basis, and I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, most people reach a certain stage in their life where they want to make a difference. They want to have an impact. They want to leave a legacy, and they want to change the world in some way, but they don't have the personal skill set, the infrastructure, or in any way the ability to make that change on their own. And so they are connecting with you and your mission and your organization because you're making the change that they want to see happen. And so by giving to you, they are leaving a legacy and having an impact. And so you are making that happen for them. And so when we think about philanthropy in this way, we're at the edge of shifting our board members' mindset so that they feel less uncomfortable and awkward about what we're trying to do. And they understand that this is a noble thing. This is a noble thing we are trying to do. We are matching people's desire for change with our ability to deliver it. And so it's a win-win for both of us. Next, I like to dive into the worksheets that I've provided. Now, I have um, uh, more exercises that I take my boards through in my longer 2-hour training, but I wanted to just give you a taste of it so that you could get started with your board. So I've included 3 worksheets. And the first one is where we explore shifting their personal thoughts about money, wealth, abundance, and giving. There's lots of talk about this in society today. Do you have a money story, a money issue that's holding you back? And of course, that can also influence our ability to fundraise. If we come from a perspective of lack or a perspective of limited pie, we need to reshape that thinking. And so I asked them to start with their own story about money, their thoughts about people with wealth, which, we're really just asking them to uncover some hidden demons here. I asked them to talk about their feelings about fundraising, about asking for someone for a gift, asking someone for a gift. And once they sort of uncover sort of what they're already feeling, it's then time to start shifting them. So then I asked them, without thinking about money, to express their experiences with giving and receiving, because that's the root of fundraising, of philanthropy. It's giving and receiving. So reflect on some gifts they've given and how it made the other person feel, and gifts they've received and how it made them feel. And then take money out of it and really imagine what it's like to feel the joy of philanthropy. So if money was of no issue, let's say you have $2 million in the bank that's totally intended for philanthropic giving, what kind of change would you like to see happen in the world? And I actually ask in my major gifts fundraising work, I do ask donors this question, even donors who've given significantly to my organization. I really want to understand their biggest dreams of impact. And so we ask our board members to think in this way as well. Really opens them up. And then I ask them to actually choose a new thought they can have about fundraising. So recognizing where they started and where we'd like them to get to in terms of their thinking, their mindset around fundraising, asking them to choose a new thought, because we can choose to think differently about things. So that's worksheet 1. In worksheet 2, we talk about their understanding of the organization's mission and their personal connection to that mission. And this is really the most important role the board plays in fundraising. It's getting them, worksheet 2 and worksheet 3, getting them comfortable telling their organizational story. So this isn't a test. We want to know what their mission is and what the mission is in their own words. We're not trying to test whether they've memorized it. Then we want them to express what the impact of the organization is. And of course, yes, if they actually don't understand the impacts, this is your chance to identify that. You need to do some additional education. But we want to get them comfortable talking about it in their own words. We want them to know the vision of the future for the organization. We want them to know what would happen if this organization no longer existed. And we want them to understand or be able to talk about their personal connection to the mission. And laying this out, it's important to understand, hopefully they've come to serve on your board because they do have some personal connection to the work you're doing. How do they want to tell that story? Now, we don't always want to tell everything personal to us and intimate details of our lives, but if we know that it's a personal, intimate detail that connects us to this organization, pre-planning what we are comfortable to share is important, because fundraising is a human-to-human connection. And so it is important that on some level we're able to share what's personal to us. And the more comfortable we can become with that story, the more comfortable we are sharing it, the more impact we will have on our fundraising success. Worksheet 3, as I mentioned, is really about practicing that. I call this cocktail conversations. It's the similar thing as an elevator pitch, but less salesy, I hope. We want our board members to know that at every opportunity, we want them to be passionately and excitedly sharing the work that they're doing at our organization, not with an ask, just with a share. And so we first ask them to express it in writing, Then maybe we get them to practice it with each other in the boardroom, and then to some friends to really get practice saying it out loud. And then eventually we want them just generally practicing saying it in everyday situations throughout their life. If they're at events, if they're at the grocery store, when they're catching up with friends, telling them about what they're doing and why they're still on this board and what's exciting happening with this organization, why they care. It's just the most important role the board can play. Sorry, the slide's going right off the page there. All right, so we've done mindset. Now we want to get on to mastery. We're at 20 minutes, and I promised this would be a 30-minute presentation. So I'm going to keep my eye on the time. From that, in the mastery section, we really don't need them to understand everything about fundraising, but they need to understand the basics. If you don't understand the basics of fundraising and you're watching this presentation, please send me an email and let me know. I do have a fundraising basics program that I can connect you with. I want organizations to understand the full suite of fundraising that's available to them. But I'm going to assume that you have a solid understanding, and this is more about what you want your board to understand. So boards can't help if they don't understand the basics. If it's all a mystery to them, they're not even sure what the point is or how they can contribute. So this is why this is important. I'd like to start with a slide that really conveys philanthropy all across the country. And this particular slide, I find, helps to do two things. It addresses if they think that there isn't a lot of giving happening out there in the world and that we're all organizations fighting over a tiny little pot of money. This really opens their mind up to the fact that there's $471 billion given to charity in the US last year. That hopefully opens their mind up. People are very philanthropic in North America. And then I really want to draw their attention to this pie chart. Many organizations start thinking all their fundraising is going to come from foundations and corporations, and they put all their effort into those two pots. And what I really want to make sure they understand is how important keeping the individual strategies as the topmost in your organization. And for the individuals, you can add that 69% to the 9% that says bequests, because bequests come from individuals as well. And so we're looking at a very large, almost 80% of the pie here coming from individuals. And we have a lot of different fundraising strategies to approach those individuals, and not just one strategy, but just so important to not be focusing on them, and to make sure that we prioritize that. So I want you to sit down with your board and review your operational budget with a focus on where your revenue comes from. And this may sound obvious, but on the brand new smaller organizations, they're spending, portions of their meeting talking about whether we buy a new printer cartridge or pens, which is too detailed. And on the very large organization side, you might only be looking at income statements on a cursory basis once a month at your meetings, and annually just blanket approving and not really getting into the details of how that revenue is actually created. So this is just a reminder. I like to remind them in this conversation about the various fundraising strategies and other revenue strategies we need to have to make our organization sustainable. So this is just a slide that portrays that. And then I want them to understand their donors. Why do people give, and how do they make up this revenue strategy for us? So I do like to get them to brainstorm what they think donor motivations could be, and even the negative ones. So you'll see guilt and obligation there on the list. This is the brainstorm list. And then I want to reassure them that our focus is going to be on revenue strategies that are not negative, not guilt, not obligation. But it's okay, for example, if one donor wants to give you something specifically because they want to be recognized. We don't judge recognition as a negative thing. Or of course, we have donors who are giving purely for impact, or they're giving purely because they have a personal connection to this particular activity or initiative. So it's various, and we want to call these out with our board so that they have a solid understanding of why people would give. Then I really like them to understand sort of donor pyramids. We express this to a board because they don't really have a concept of how we're building our strategy. So of course, from everyone in the world at the bottom of the pyramid, we have our first time givers, and then some of those will stick with us if we do a good job and become renewal donors. Some of those will stick with us for multiple years and become what we call consistent donors. Hopefully some of those will step up and love us and keep giving and become major donors and ultimately planned giving or bequest donors. And at each level, there are fewer donors. We're trying to keep as many of them as possible moving up this pyramid, but each gift is larger as you go up this pyramid. And so another way to convey this, and you can find these charts anywhere on the internet, similar charts. But another way that I like to convey this is by using an actual example from an organization. In this one, it's an organization that raises 1.2 million a year. And this just goes to show that the largest number of donors, very important, but they are actually giving smaller gifts. So they actually only total 4.2 of the overall revenue generated. And if you skip to the top, you'll see that a mere 151 or 11% of our donors are actually responsible for 80% of our revenue in this example. So this is a good opportunity to outline how important it is for us to focus on the relationship development, which the board is so poised to help you with, that one-to-one cultivation. Of course, I'm going on about that a little bit because I specialize in major gifts and I really focus in on those major gift strategies. But just imagine we have 103 donors and we need to do a good job with all of them. But if we added some additional resources to personalizing and cultivating relationships with that 151, very doable 151 people. And that's going to impact that 80% side of our revenue. Just so important that the board understands that. This is another chart that just really talks about how we should be spending our time. 70% of our time should be spent on those higher level gifts. That does not mean we do not spend time on those smaller level gifts, which may come from one-to-many solicitations or from events. We absolutely need those. That's the base of our pyramid. But just in terms of investing resources, time, and money in those higher level programs. So that gives them an understanding. You really want to apply that specifically to your organization. Get your board members to understand how you raise money currently and where you want to go so that they feel solid in an understanding of that. They don't need to get too detailed unless you have no staff and they are actually going to be doing the fundraising, in which case you want to arm them with a bit more advanced level knowledge. Okay, so moving on to what's really important next is the third part of the triangle, giving them some momentum and some early wins. So of course, the board's role is different if you have staff versus no staff, and you want to clearly talk about the board's role at this point in the training, and make sure that if you do have staff, you don't have anybody sort of stepping on anybody's toes, and you understand who's going to do what. But this is really important for your organization that you describe what relationship you want to see happening here. In my experience, it's really important that the board understands their most important roles are to be connectors, to be storytellers, and to be visionaries. They are going to connect us with people that they know who can help us. They are going to be out there constantly telling the organizational story in a compelling way. And they are going to help us create the vision for our organization in the future. Some things that we like to say the board can do initially, we've got a list here on the left-hand side, spreading the word, helping us to plan, doing peer reviews, leading by example, thanking donors, opening doors, supporting and attending events, versus what they could get to once they've been at it and feel very confident. They could do some of these more advanced things like conducting peer reviews with their own colleagues, helping with major gift donor cultivation from discovery to ask. Let me know if you need more information about that. I have a whole program. Subject matter experts they could become. They could represent your organization in hosting a donor, or they could maybe take on capital campaign leadership if your organization needs to like step into a capital campaign. And they can help with long-range growth planning. So what does that look like in terms of giving your board member early wins? I did include in your worksheets a checklist. I love to end this training with my board members checking off a couple of things that they will commit to, and then find a way to make that something you can report back on in your board meeting. If we have wins, things that we want to measure, things we committed to doing and doing differently, then let's make this a part of our regular board meeting discussion. Are we going to celebrate that someone had the opportunity to talk to some colleagues at a recent event about your organization, or that someone brought someone for a tour, or that someone helped go on a stewardship meeting or an ask meeting? Let's celebrate those things at the board meeting so that we can actually be promoting those successes. But yes, at the end of your board training on fundraising, I like to get them to commit to something that's easy to commit to. Make it easy, give them an early win, and that little win will cause momentum for future success. So the last thing I said I would address, and we are at 31 minutes, so I did go a little bit over, but I'm going to wrap it up here quickly. We want to get our board then talking about how to build long-range success in the future. So now that they're more comfortable with fundraising, they understand what needs to happen, and they've had some early wins, let's get them talking about when they have a vision for the organization. Like, let's have a satellite office, or let's buy a building, or let's expand into a whole new area of programming, that they also have to have an equal and dynamic conversation about how they will resource that vision. They can't just leave that up to a few volunteers or the staff. It has to be vision that comes with this resourcing conversation that is built on an understanding of what it takes to fundraise. So they need to know what they will invest in. Are they going to invest in fundraising, training, education, skill building? Would they, for a certain project, undertake investing in a feasibility study? Would they hire a consultant? Would they hire some coaching for their staff or for certain volunteers? Would they, and I have hiring here twice, would they hire, if they don't have any staff, would they hire staff? If they have staff, but they don't have someone dedicated to fundraising, would they consider hiring someone who does fundraising full-time? These are the things that the board needs to be thinking about at the same time as they're having their visionary conversations. So that is the onboard overview, the onboard fundraising training overview that I think you can deliver. So this training works. I promise you. You've probably been avoiding or trying to figure out how you're going to train your board to do fundraising. This works. Take it head on. Do some of these exercises. Follow this this framework, and I know you will succeed. I shared this board training with a number of boards that either I'm a member of or that I've been the executive director of, and I have seen the difference it has made. And I can tell you, avoiding having this training conversation or thinking that you just don't know if your board would accept it or embrace it is not getting you anywhere. Just get your board chair on side and get started. Make a plan, deliver this training. And why not? It's December. Why not plan it for January? It's a great time to think about turning a new leaf. I had 100 people go through the online version. It's a multi-module online version of this training, and I've watched them transform as well. So I feel like I've got some evidence behind me that getting this training underway is really going to make a difference for your organization. I'm really eager to see what changes you see happen and flow from training your organization. So please let me know if you undertake this training, what successes you have. If you do want to go deeper, if this is making you feel like it's the tip of the iceberg, you're still not sure where to go with it, you've got some value out of this training, you know where you would like to see your board go, but you want the step-by-step, you want the overview, the slide deck, all of the things, then you might want to join me for my 2-hour masterclass where I go into this in a bit more detail. I'll send you an email about that. If that's for you, sign up. Otherwise, just get started. Give it a try. Launch this training for your organization and let me know how it goes. I'd love some feedback, of course, if this training was helpful to you. 36 minutes. I hope that it was time well spent for you, and I look forward to supporting you in your fundraising in a variety of ways in the future. Have a great day.